Welcome to Fluid Particle Mechanics Laboratory. Dr. Ragraj Pandian will introduce this experiment.
Dear students, today we are going to demonstrate one of the very interesting experiments in this laboratory, that is determination of major losses due to friction in the given pipe. There are three objectives in this experiment. First objective is to determine the head loss due to friction. So in that, we will be varying the flow rates in the given pipe of diameter D1, and for the varying flow rates, we will be determining head loss experimentally. The second objective is to determine the friction factor using Darcy's Weisbach equation. So for varying flow rates for the given pipe of diameter D1, you will be obtaining friction factor using the Darcy's Weisbach equation. So every flow rate you will be getting every friction factor. The third objective is to plot log NRE versus log friction factor, that is friction factor chart for the given pipe. So in our experiment, we will be providing two different pipes of having various diameter. So for those diameter pipe, you will be conducting friction factor calculation with the variation of flow rates. So once you obtain friction factors with varying flow rates, you can able to plot log NRE versus log of friction factor for the pipe 1 as well as for the pipe 2.
The objective of this experiment is to study the losses due to friction in pipelines. Now sir is going to explain the theory part of the experiment.
Now, let us look into the theory part of this experiment. If you look at the application of pipes, we was talking about the closed conduits. We have seen the flow of fluids can be in an open channel or in a closed channel. When it comes to closed channel, we have seen that the flow will be across the closed conduits, particularly if it is a circular pipes. We have a variety of applications for pipes, okay, particularly circular pipes. So if you look at our daily usage, like water distribution from one city to another city, or water is there from a water resource is there some 5 kilometers away from a city, through a large pipes we bring the water to the city and distribute to the houses also, right? So starting from the resources to delivery into your kitchen pipe, we have application of water pipelines, okay. And if you look at the transportation of oil and gases, either it can be natural gas or the crude oil or petrol and gases, diesel kind of things, we have to transport it from one of the reservoir, means we can say that it is like on site to refinery plant, from refinery plant to another processing unit, all that. So we need to transport oil and gases. Also it also needs to be transported across the cities also, right? For example, natural gas kitchens, city gas distribution is also coming into picture when we want to use natural gas, like similar to our LPG, right? So that way this city gas distribution coming into picture, where we have to make use of the pipelines to transport the oil and gases from one place to another place, okay. And similarly, if you look at the process control or other air pneumatic system, to transport the air or other gases also, we have to make use of pipes, circular pipes. And if you look at the gas transportation system, gases have to be transported for even within a chemical industry. As a chemical engineer, we make use of we know that the reactions can take place either in solid phase, liquid phase, or gas phase. So for gas phase reactions and all, we have to take the reactants or the products or the intermediates that are formed needs to be transported from one place to another place. So we make use of pipelines there also. Similarly, steam is used to pressurize, or steam itself is used as one of the ingredients, or we can say that raw material in the reactions or in the processes unit operations. So we make use of steams. So steam can also be transported using the pipelines. And particularly if you look at the hydropower plants from dam to where the turbine is situated, we make use of large diameter pipes, which is often called as penstock. The water is taken through the pipe, which will go with all these things. So the kinetic energy is converted into mechanical energy to run the turbine. So thereby we even convert to electrical energy. So in these places for these power transmissions, we make use of the pipes. And even for firefighting systems, which in any building, or even it can be an industrial building or even business building or our domestic building. Nowadays, if it is a multi-story building, we should have firefighting systems in the building. So for that firefighting systems also, we make use of pipes. And finally, for domestic use, for the applications in the apartments or in houses, you have a sump, and from where we lift the pump to overhead tank, and it needs to be distributed to bathroom, kitchen, everywhere. So we make use of pipes that they are in small diameter, or it may be even because it is internally used. Even we can make use of plastic pipes also there, right? PVC pipes or other polymer pipes. So that way, it is essential that we have to make use of pipes to transport fluid from one place to another place. And there is a constraint over there is that fluid has to be transported with a limited pressure. Okay, because if the pressure is, we have upper and limit for a pressure up to which the fluid can be transported through the pipes. Also, we definitely have a negative pressure, it can be transported, but there is a cap on it also, because whenever the pressure of the fluid in the pipeline falls below the vapor pressure of the fluid, what will happen? Bubble formation will take place. So when when that is more, what will happen? That there will be a gap, so which may restrict the flow for the fluid. That is a cross section available for the flow of the fluid, right? So such restriction is there. That's why we need to maintain a minimum pressure in the system, because below which the vapor will be formed. Even that will cause corrosion or erosion problem, because when the fluid is reaching any solid boundaries made up of metal, when the bubble is bursting suddenly, it will cause erosion on the surface. So that way we have corrosion taking place. So that's why some pressure has to be maintained in the system. I hope you know aware of what is gauge pressure and negative pressure. Any pressure above the atmospheric pressure, and if we are measuring it in from as with the atmospheric pressure as the reference, it is called as gauge pressure. When we are measuring the negative pressure or vacuum pressures below the atmospheric pressure using atmospheric pressure as the reference, so then that the difference between the actual pressure to the atmospheric pressure is referred to as negative pressure. Okay, so that is the pressure thing. So we have to maintain certain amount of pressure in the system. Okay, so I will directly get into this Bernoulli equation, because if you want to measure the pressure drop across any system, it is easier for us to make use of the application of Bernoulli's equation into it. So what is the Bernoulli's theorem or Bernoulli's statement says? For an incompressible fluid, incompressible in the sense it is density changes are negligible between two locations. If density of the liquid the changes in the density of the fluid is negligible, in that case we call it as incompressible liquid, and the flow is steady. When we say steady flow, the properties at the locations at a particular location does not change with respect to time. So that way we have steady flow of fluid, and we have inviscid fluid flow. What is inviscid fluid flow? We are assuming an ideal fluid. So that means when I say ideal fluid, viscosity is zero. You can say that inviscid flow is a flow of an ideal fluid which is assumed to have a zero viscosity. So these are the assumptions made in the Bernoulli's theorem. So for such an incompressible, steady and inviscid fluid flow, the total mechanical energy of the fluid is constant. I hope you have learned this Bernoulli's theorem in thermodynamics also. So with that point of view also we can define the same. So in fluid mechanics also we have derived the Bernoulli equation, which is a summation of total head is equal to constant, which can be written in terms of head or in terms of energy per unit volumetric flow rate. We can define different ways. So if I express it pressure in terms of pressure head, what is the difference? Pressure head is equal to P by rho g. So that is the pressure divided by density into acceleration due to gravity. Okay, so that way pressure head is equal to P by rho g. So we can say pressure head plus velocity head plus static head is equal to total head. So that is going to be constant. That's what Bernoulli's equation states. Okay. So if we say talk in terms of energy term also, P refers to pressure term, work term. One second. So P refers to work term, rho v square by 2 refers to kinetic energy term, rho gz refers to potential energy term. Okay, so this summation of these three energy terms is equal to constant. Okay, so this can be used between two locations at varying cross section area. So the basic approach to all piping system is to write the Bernoulli equation between any 2 points which is connected by a streamline. What is streamline? We know. Okay, streamline is a continuous line, imaginary line at any point at which tangent will give the direction of the velocity, right? So we have any 2 points connected by streamlines where the conditions are known. When I say conditions are known, we know what is the density at that location, what is the cross section area at that location, that is density, diameter of the pipe at that location, what is the volumetric flow rate, means what is the volumetric flow rate. If all these are known, it's easy for us to determine the pressure drop across two locations. Okay, but there are certain limitations associated with the Bernoulli equation. Why? Because we are assuming many things in the Bernoulli equation derivation, like incompressible, steady, inviscid, like that, right? So if we look at the limitations of this Bernoulli equation, we are considering the velocity to be uniform across the pipeline. You can say that here, starting from the near the boundary to the center line of the pipe, we are assuming the diameter velocity to be uniform. That is one of the assumptions in Bernoulli equation. But when they derived the Hagen-Poiseuille equation, we have seen that velocity will vary. Even with Newton's law of viscosity, we know that the velocity of the fluid is zero at the interface, and as the fluid layer away from the boundary, solid boundary, will have the maximum velocity. Whichever is far away from the solid boundary will have the maximum velocity. So the velocity will be varying, and even we have seen the for laminar flow, we are going to have a hyperbolic curve velocity profile. Whereas in case of turbulent flow, sorry, so in case of a turbulent flow, we will have a flattened curve because we will have uniform velocity. The change in velocity will be restricted only near the boundaries, right? So that way, this velocity is actually varying across the cross section, but we are assuming it to be uniform throughout the cross section, right? So that is one of the limitations of this Bernoulli's equation. And another issue is we are assuming there is no energy losses in the system. And we are assuming there are no external forces which are acting on the system in the fluid. Okay, but actually we have some of the forces acting, which we will discuss in detail. So the external forces which occur in the actual practice or in actual piping system where the fluid is flowing, such as frictional forces, we are neglecting them. Okay, that is another limitation with Bernoulli's equation. And even we are assuming there is no loss of energy within when the liquid is in motion, but kinetic energy is getting converted into heat, and that heat is lost as the energy to the surrounding, right? So and even moreover, some of the energy is lost due to shear force in the viscous flow. Okay, so all these have been neglected in the Bernoulli equation derivation, and since these losses are not considered, but still, even though with these limitations, this Bernoulli equation will hold good when the fluid is away from the boundary. Okay, only near the solid boundary these limitations have the effect. However, this Bernoulli equation is applicable for a system where you have a larger diameter or the distance between the two solid boundaries are high. Okay, so that means larger diameter if it is a closed conduit. Okay, so that way away from the boundary layer, this Bernoulli equation will still hold good. However, to take into consideration of all these losses near the boundaries, because when you have small diameter pipes, these limitations have a issue. So that's why we have a modified Bernoulli's equation. Okay, so when I say modified Bernoulli's equation, because whatever energy or work added to the system or energy or work removed from the system both are taken care in this case. Okay, so how the work or energy or head, if I say it is in terms of head, okay, added to the system is taken care in the left hand side, and the energy or work or head loss are removed from the system. They are taken care by adding a term in the right hand side of the Bernoulli equation. That is, when we apply Bernoulli equation between 1 and 2, we can say that this is equal to this. So we have left hand side and we are having a right hand side. So this is the regular term we have from Bernoulli equation, right? P by rho g. This is nothing but your rho g, weight density. Okay, P by rho g plus V square by 2g plus Z1 at location 1. Right, this is at location 2. So we add a term called HP in the left hand side. So mostly the work done to the system for a fluid is will be due to pump. Well, I repeat, whatever energy or work that is added to the system, that is taken care by adding a term in the left hand side. Like mainly we add the work done by the pump, head developed by the pump is added in the left hand side. And similarly, whatever is the losses or energy removed from the system or head removed from the system, that is taken care by adding a term in the right hand side. So we have head, generally, as I told, head developed by the pump is the work done on the system. So we write it here, it is HP. So we have H subscript P, which is head developed by the pump. Okay, HP. Okay, once you know the head developed by the pump, we can find out the power requirement. So the power requirement can be given by rho g q HP, because it is like delta P into Q. That is the power requirement. So here delta P is rho g HP. So this is pressure head multiplying by the density and the acceleration due to gravity, you get delta P. So you multiply by the discharge, you are going to get power. Usually this is theoretical power requirement. If you want to know what is the actual power requirement, you have the efficiency of the pump. So you will have divided by this, you will give you the actual power requirement of the pump. Okay, so that actually we are concerned about in the Bernoulli's equation, we will be adding only the head developed by the pump, which can be used to find out the actual power requirement of the pump. Okay, which have been discussed in detail in flow transport devices. Okay, particularly centrifugal pump video we have already released. Now, what are the losses, head losses? If it is, as I told, if the work is done by the fluid, we supply some of the energy, head pressure is converted into the turbine, because some of the fluid, when I say that from dam through these pin stocks, we are transporting the fluid and it is making the turbine to rotate, right? Some of the energy is supplied to the turbine, which we will not be concerned about in this particular chemical engineering course, but civil engineers they will be working, because they study that thermal power plants or hydropower plants. Okay, wherever here, say if it is thermal power plant, steam generated from the coal will be used to run the turbine. If it is hydropower plant, water is used to run the turbine. Water from very high elevation is transported to a penstock pipe, which is making the turbine to rotate. Okay, so other than that, there are several losses that is happening in the system. Okay, so that we are going to discuss in detail in this particular lecture. Okay, so if you look at these head losses, wherever you consider any two sections, between 1 and 2, there can be different type of losses. Okay, so which we will discuss in detail. Why losses are coming into picture? For that, we should start with what is Newton's law of viscosity, because we know that according to Newton's law of viscosity, the shear stress is directly proportional to rate of shear strain. Okay, so those fluids which obey this Newton's law of viscosity are called as Newtonian fluids. Those who do not obey that one are called non-Newtonian fluids. I hope you have studied the rheology diagram in your theory. So there are a lot of fluids like thixotropic fluids, dilatants, bilatants, or you have what you call Bingham plastic, which can initially withhold some of the shear stress, right? So that kind of fluids are there. Okay, so other than that, we have ideal fluid, ideal solid. What is ideal fluid? Where viscosity is 0. Okay, so also we know that near a solid boundary, a stagnant liquid film will be formed. That means the velocity of that film will be 0. Okay, whereas if you consider different layers, the layer of the liquid or fluid which is far away from the solid boundary will be moving with a maximum velocity because it has no strings attached to it. Okay, so that means it is free from any influence of the solid boundary, so which we can even beyond which we call it as 99% of uniform velocity which will be having. So boundary layer ends where you have 99% of the average velocity, right? So that and all discussed in fully developed flow in another video also. Okay, now coming to here, so there are actually you have a relationship between the shear stress, right? Shear stress and the velocity. Okay, so that Hagen-Poiseuille equation also we are going to discuss. So we have, with respect to this pipe flow, we have two type of losses. One is major loss and we have minor losses. So loss due to friction is considered to be major loss because that is contributing more to the head losses. Whereas fittings or sudden contractions, sudden expansions, you have fittings like you have another essential fittings like valves are used, right? They all come under the minor energy losses. So overall head loss is equal to the summation of head loss due to major loss, that is called frictional losses, or head loss due to minor losses which is due to fittings and sudden expansion or sudden contraction. So we are actually in this FPM laboratory, we are going to perform two experiments. One is estimation of frictional losses, pressure head loss due to major loss, that is called loss due to friction, and we have minor losses, determination of minor losses, which is loss due to fittings or sudden expansion or sudden contraction. So we are going to perform two experiments with this particular losses in a pipe flow. So one is major losses, another one is minor losses. So in this particular lab, we are going to perform experiment to determine the pressure drop or head loss due to friction. Okay, that means we are concentrating on major head loss. So in the next experiment, we are going to focus on the minor energy losses. Got it? Okay. Now, what is this pipe friction? Because we are talking about frictional loss. First, we should have to define what is friction, right? So whenever there is a flow of fluid through a pipe, it gets some resistance due to the viscous shear stress within the fluid. Also, the turbulence that is occurring along the internal pipe wall. Whenever there is a roughness is more, we are going to have some turbulence taking place near the solid boundary. Okay, so that's, as I said, this turbulence or this resistance all will depend upon the roughness of the pipe material. That is roughness in the sense that roughness is a factor dependence on the age of the pipe. And I say age of the pipe, it is like the duration, time duration the pipe is being used. If a pipe is relatively new, roughness is going to be less, right? Because it is not having any rough surface, because it is manufactured from the industry and it has reached your place, right? So the roughness will be less. But when it is in service, slowly it gets some wear and due to wear and tear, there will be roughness, that is scale formation, any deposition may be there, right? So like that, due to erosion also. So different reasons there will be roughness present in the surface of the pipe material. Okay, so this roughness will be offering some resistance to the fluid flow. So in that case, we are defining that resistance as the pipe friction. Okay, so what is the unit of this resistance? How we can measure them? So usually we are measuring them in terms of feet or meters of the head of the fluid. Because head loss, that's why we call it as pressure head loss. If you want to say pressure loss, delta P, or you can divide delta P by rho G, it becomes pressure head, right? So we call it as head loss due to. So that's why general name of this experiment is head loss due to friction. Okay, or losses due to friction. Okay, so this experiment is thus referred as the head loss due to pipe friction. That's how this experiment got this name. Okay, and there are a lot of research which is being carried out to determine, because we don't have any fundamental equation to exactly know how the pipe is going to be, because we have a construction of material and we have different fluid which is being used, right? So once we know the temperature conditions, pH of the liquid, or what is the nature of the fluid, what is the temperature, what is the ambient conditions, all that is going to affect the parameters, right? So because we are going to see what are the different parameter which will influence the friction. Okay, so that we will discuss in a while. So to start with, I hope in theory class we have derived the expression for determination of pressure drop per unit length across a laminar flow conditions in a closed conduit, particularly circular pipe. So if you have a circular pipe, And if you want to determine the pressure drop across the unit length, so how we can determine it? So that's where in two researchers, Hagen and Poiseuille, derived an expression and given to us. Okay, so we are easily making use of it. So here they have considered that there is a change in velocity, right? So they consider average velocity is half of the maximum velocity. As I told, where the velocity will be maximum, where it will be maximum, it is far away from the solid boundary. But in a closed conduit, is there like the which location we will have such a maximum velocity? In a closed conduit like a pipe, the center line of the pipe, right? Because that is equidistant from all the wall. It is a circular pipe. So equidistant from all the wall, you have a center line. So that is the location where we are going to have a maximum velocity. And here we can bring, I hope in the derivation they have shown even that maximum average velocity is considered to be half of the maximum velocity, or you can derive that relationship. Okay, so I am just directly taking the final expression that we obtained in the derivation of Hagen-Poiseuille equation. So we have from that equation, we have delta P by L equal to 32 mu V average by D square, where all have the standard notation. Delta P is the pressure drop. Usually, wherever when you say in mathematics a delta 2, delta refers to 2 minus 1. For example, it is y2 minus y1. x2 minus x1 is what we use for delta y or delta x. Okay, but whereas in a pipeline, if we consider a pipeline between a length of 1 and 2, we are going to have delta P, pressure at this location 1 is P1, pressure at this point P is location 2 is P2. So we have delta P is P1 is greater than P2 because there is some loss due to friction along the travel of the fluid. Fluid is traveling across this pipe, right? So here delta P refers to P1 minus P2, that we should keep in mind, because whenever we write this delta P, if you write 2 minus 1, it is like you will get negative value, that's all, right? That just to take care of the dimensions, direction of the fluid. If it is a minus, whenever we get a minus value, when we consider a particular direction of fluid, if we get answer in minus, it means that the flow is not in this direction, it is in the opposite direction. That with common sense we will able to infer, right? So I am starting with this delta P by L 32 mu by V average by D square. Mu is the viscosity of the fluid. Remember, if it is in SI unit, it is in Pascal, it is in meters, viscosity in Pascal second, velocity is in meter per second, diameter in meter square. You check the units, you tally, if you do the unit tally, you are going to get Pascal per meter as the unit. Okay, well, so if you take this L to the right hand side, what will happen? You will get a equation delta P is equal to 32 mu V average into L by D square. Let it be equation number 1, because in future I am going to make use of it. And if we rearrange this same equation as for a velocity, because if I want to write for what is volumetric flow rate, we know volumetric flow rate is A into V, right? Q equal to A into V, because we know that m dot equal to rho AV. For an incompressible fluid, density changes are negligible. So then you have Q equal to A into V, right? So that is coming into picture. Okay, so we are, because to substitute velocity value, we rearrange this equation. That is the objective here. Okay, so I am writing here V average is equal to delta P, D will go to the numerator. So delta P D square by 32 mu L. And another point we should note is, whenever there is a viscosity is 0, then will there be a pressure drop across it? No, because it is ideal fluid. So then loss due to friction is 0. So that way, when there is no friction, when there will be no friction, when the viscosity is 0, that is only for ideal fluids, delta P is going to be 0, whatever is the length of the pipe. Okay, so here taking this equation, substituting what is Q, so Q is equal to A into V average. We know that D of the diameter of the pipe, cross section, D, it is cross section area. Okay, so cross section area into velocity. So we know the diameter is D, cross section area is going to be pi D square by 4. We have just written what is V average, substitute it. So this D power 4 we get 32 into 4, you get 128. So we have an expression for Q. Okay, now we have this Q, and as I told you, to how to determine the pressure loss. Pressure loss is equal to, as I told you, Q into this, Q into, I am repeating, yeah, Q into 128 mu L by pi D power 4. How we are getting the equation? We are keeping this in the right hand side. taking remaining terms to the left hand side. So we get an equation. We are just rearranging it, right? So del P equal to Q into 128 mu L by pi d power 4. So what we get to know is delta P is a function of viscosity, length of the pipe, and it is inversely proportional to the d power 4. Okay, so that's what you can write as delta P is a function of mu L 1 by d power 4. I repeat, so here we are writing discharge. Okay, discharge is volumetric flow rate. So volumetric flow rate is equal to area in cross section area into V average. So here we are getting what is V average from the Hagen-Poiseuille equation rearrangement. So substituting that, we get Q equal to delta P pi d power 4 by 128 mu L. So rearranging it, we get delta P equal to this. So from that we can say that overall head loss in a pipe is affected by several factors, which includes viscosity of the liquid, the size of the internal pipe diameter, so that is 1 by d power 4. That again we have length of the pipe. Okay, so we have length of the pipe. Other than that, we are going to discuss them in detail. The internal roughness of the pipe and the elevation between the two ends of the pipe. Okay, so that we will discuss in detail again. So before that, what is friction factor we want to define? So that friction factor is defined by Darcy equation. Okay, so this Darcy equation is we have a Darcy friction factor also. So Darcy equation gives us the head loss due to friction, which is HF, which is given by F into L by d V square by 2Ag. So if you consider average velocity, it is going to be V average square by 2G. So that is our Darcy equation. Okay. So this equation is commonly available in all the textbooks, so we can refer to it for details. Now, if HF is known, how to get in? Okay, HF is in meters, we know, meters of the fluid, right? Even atmospheric pressure you can express in terms of mercury means what? How much meters of mercury if it's 1 atmosphere? 760 mm mercury. If you want to say in terms of meters of water, so it is around 10.6. So like that, this is 760 mm mercury is the 1 atmospheric pressure. So always we can express the pressure in terms of pressure head, right? So here also, if you want to convert this pressure head into pressure, what to do? Delta P equal to rho g HF. So we will get this rho g into this term. So G will get cancelled. So F L by D rho V average square by 2 is the equation we have 2. So if you take equation 1, which we already have, is we have from this is from rewriting the Hagen-Poiseuille equation. This is nothing but Hagen-Poiseuille equation with the L going to the right hand side. Otherwise it is delta P by L. So taking L to the right hand side, we have delta P equal to 32 mu V average L by D square. So now we comparing equation 1 and 2, you can equate it. To simplify it, some of the term will get cancelled, which I will show you again here in detail. So V average is in the left hand side, V average square is in the right hand side. Okay, so this D is there, D square is there, L term will get cancelled. So if you only isolate this F term here, what we get is F equal to 64 mu by rho Vd, and we know what is Reynolds number. Reynolds number is the ratio of inertial forces to viscous forces, right? Based on that, we can classify the fluid in fluid flow types: laminar flow, turbulent flow. In between certain value, it is critical flow, right? So that way we can rewrite to write this friction factor is equal to 64 by NRE. Okay, so that is the relationship we generally use. Remember, when we say 64, it is Darcy friction factor. Okay, why I am saying the name for this friction factor is next I am going to introduce you another friction factor, which is called as fanning friction factor. The relationship between them is your Darcy friction factor is 4 times the fanning friction factor. So if I always insist students to use this fanning friction factor, because this formula we use when I say when I say HF, it is fanning head loss due to friction can be given by HF equal to 4F L by D V square by 2G. So when I write F4F here, this F is fanning friction factor. So in that case, F is equal to, it is like 1/4 of Darcy friction factor, right? Then F is 64 by NRE with respect to Darcy friction factor. If fanning friction is 1/4 of it, what we will get? So a fanning friction factor is equal to 1/4 of 64 by NRE, which is equal to 16 by NRE. So this is what standard Modi chart also you will find when we use fanning friction factor. Formula is changing. If you don't want to use fanning friction factor, you have to use Darcy equation. The Darcy equation is HF equal to F L by D V square by 2G. So your F equal to 64 by NRE. Whereas what I suggest you to use is this formula to find the friction factor always. So HF equal to 4FL by dV square by 2G, where F equal to 16 by NRE, which means that what, when you plot a Reynolds number versus friction factor, you are going to get a slope like this. Okay, we will see that one. Okay. Before that, this friction factor is function of several parameters, right? We have seen that roughness, all that, as I told you. So what is roughness? We have to see. As I told you, if it is a pipe is relatively new, the smooth surface will be smooth. Okay, but with respect to time, due to wear and tear, we will be getting some roughness on the surface. So to mathematically model it, just to give you a picture visualization, so that roughness can be considered to be like square blocks like here, right, rectangular blocks, or it can be like semicircular blocks. Okay, so somewhere you are having some projections, that is like extra projections which has come in the internal. Will it come in the outside? No, because the fluid is flowing only inside the pipe. Outside pipe you won't have anything, but maybe due to surface exposure to different environment, corrosion can take place outside, but usually it will be painted and well maintained, right? But inside you cannot go inside every day and clean the things, right? So usually for that also there are certain mechanisms are involved, how to maintain these pipes smooth. We introduce some of the nanoparticles or some polymers, polymer beads into the fluid flow. It is like maintenance. You cannot do it in regular operation. Like you stop your regular supply, you send some liquid with some polymer beads or small beads, which will go and knock the surfaces and it will take off, right? So it will take off whatever is deposited onto it. Okay, because what is the deposition? How the deposition takes place? Whenever there is some foreign material which is present in the fluid, so that way get attached to the surface. Okay, if the affinity is more towards the wall. Okay, so that way that it get clogged here. Like how when we throw plastic bottles into the river, it goes near the bridges wherever some block is there, it gets stopped there, right? Like that, or any foreign material that is present in your regular fluid will go and form this thing. Otherwise, it is maybe corrosion. As I said, corrosion may be another cause of this roughness. Okay, so this can be considered. So what is the thickness of this roughness is affecting us the friction losses. Okay, how? That's why we are defining the friction factor. So this friction factor is a function of this K by D ratio. Okay, what is K here? K is the thickness of your roughness, absolute roughness thickness. Okay, what will be the unit of it? It will have the same unit as of the diameter of the pipe. Okay, so K is in meters, your diameter is in meters. If you are writing in feet, it is going to be in feet. Okay, that is the dimension of length. So it is expressed as it has the unit of dimensions of the length. Okay, so diameter is in feet, means you can express it in feet. Okay, so we can have a ratio of K by D, which will, where friction factor is depending upon K by D ratio, which we will discuss in detail in the next slide. So the as I told, K, that K is referred to as roughness parameter or absolute roughness, which is the length representing the magnitude of the surface roughness. Okay, then what is relative roughness? It is the ratio of your roughness to the diameter of the conduit. Okay, if it is a circular pipe, it is going to be diameter. Otherwise, it can be any characteristic length. So in general, you should say K by L, where L is the characteristic length. For a pipe, the characteristic length is the diameter. So we say K by D. Okay, so that K, so we can say this friction factor depends upon the K by D ratio. How it is depending on it? For example, why we are showing you this diagram is K is same value, but the diameter is different. How it affects the friction factor? Here also, whatever is the model, either this model or this model, we have small diameter pipe and larger diameter pipe. So when the diameter is small, what is the effect? When the diameter is high, what is the effect? We can try to visualize. Okay, so what we can say is, we can say when K by D ratio, when diameter is more. Okay, when in first case, let me say here what we have diameter. Let me say this is diameter 1. Let me say this is diameter 2. So we have diameter 2. When diameter is high, K is same. Let us consider K to be same. So let me say K is 5. So you have two diameters. One is 50, another one is 80. Okay. So let me say this is D2. So okay. So when D2 is high, for the same K, what will happen to the ratio of this? This ratio value is decreasing. If this ratio is decreasing, we know that F is directly proportional to K by D. When K by D is decreasing, your F value will decrease. So that we can visualize, because here D2 is greater than D1. Consider the other case where you have D1. When the D1 is less, for the same K value, when D1 is less, K by D value will be increasing. So when K by D is increasing, obviously your F value will increase. Okay, so we should be thorough with this factor called as roughness parameter, relative roughness, which is the ratio of absolute roughness, K or epsilon. Okay, so you can say K by D or epsilon by D. I can see representation of smooth wall, relatively new pipe, mean no rough projections, so fluid is not getting disturbed much. But when the roughness like this comes into picture, so there will be a defined formation is there. There is no smooth movement of the fluid. Okay. So thus we can overall we can say that the pressure drop in a pipeline depends upon several parameters, because even for Huygens-Poiseuille equation we have seen delta P by L equal to 32 mu U by D square, or if you consider fanning friction factor and say what is HF, HF equal to 4F L by D P square by 2G. Okay, so now we can say that this depends upon the properties of the fluid like density and viscosity, and it will also depend upon the velocity, it will depend upon the length of the pipe, it will depend upon the diameter, and when you say friction factor, it will also depend upon the age of the pipe, or you can say relative roughness of the pipe. Okay, because these projections of the wall can protrude out of the laminar sublayers. And remember, during in a laminar flow, this relative roughness is not present. That's what I was showing you here. If it is smooth wall, when you say, so you are going to have a laminar flow condition kind of situation there. Okay. So as I told you, this head loss can be divided into two parts. One is major loss and minor loss. So the major loss comes from the viscosity in the pipeline, whereas this minus loss will come due to energy losses in the components, like due to fittings, due to walls present there, due to sudden expansion or sudden contraction that comes into picture. Remember, you cannot give a pipeline from the gas station to your home with a single straight pipeline, right? So it's not like Google Map finding the distance only, it will show straight how much is the distance. But if you have to take actual route, kilometer is going to vary, right? So same way here also, we are going to have different losses coming into picture. Okay. So these are some of the roughness parameters which is present in the system. Okay, so for different type of a pipe, we are going to have roughness parameter different, right? So obviously, if it is stainless steel, we are going to have less roughness. If it is mild steel, it is going to be slightly more. And for a different material, it is listed here. You can go through it. Okay. As I told, the unit is going to be in terms of meters or feet. As I said, it will have the dimensions of the length. Right. Well, now we have seen the friction factor and how the friction factor is a function of Reynolds number, and we know that friction factor depends upon the roughness parameter, right? And we have seen the list of absolute roughness for different pipelines, right? So now we can make a chart called as Moody chart, which will give us easily to refer to the chart. And if you know the Reynolds number and the type of material of construction of the pipe, we can easily get the friction factor from this chart. Okay, so there are several empirical equations available to determine the friction factor, like Blasius equation is there, different equations are there, but they have limitations of Reynolds number range. Within a particular Reynolds number range only, you will get the friction factor, using the empirical equations to determine the friction factor. Now this Moody chart also based on some of the equations, empirical equation, but easy to use. It's like anybody who knows the Reynolds number value and the name of the pipe can easily get the friction factor. Okay, so now that chart is called a friction factor chart. So this is actually a log plot. Actually, you may not have been introduced to, naturally we used to have only XY plot where the scales are not changing, right? Only what we will write the scale in x-axis, 1 centimeter is equal to this much. In y-axis, 1 centimeter equal to this much units, right? That's all. That means every box have equal values. Whereas when I say log plot, what happens is every 10 sections we change the order of the magnitude is changing. The order of the magnitude is changing in each axis. For example, if I say 10 to 100, this is changing from each subdivision refers to 20, 30, 40, 50 up to 100. Next one is not 100. After 100, it is not 110. It is actually going to become 100 to 1000, which means that each subdivision is changing with multiples of 100. That is 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 up to 1000. And the next one is 1000 to 10,000, which means that each subdivision is not even 1000. It is changing not even hundreds. It is changing 1000, 2000, 10, 5000, 8000, 10,000 like that. Okay. So that's the difference between normal graphs and these log graphs. So that's how, if you are clear about that, it is easy to use these log graphs, because as you see here, it is 10 power 3, it is 10 power 4. Each subdivision is going to change in terms of 10 power 3. Between 10 power 4 to 10 power 5, each subdivision is going to change with respect to 10 power 4 values. Okay, so that we should know. Remember, these are all high values, right? Beyond 4000, it is going to be turbulent flow. So we have values of 10 power 5, 10 power 7, 10 power 8 up to that. Okay. So Reynolds number we have seen, and the relative roughness is given epsilon by D. Okay. So if you know the epsilon value can be given in a table. So for each different material, epsilon is going to be different. So if you know epsilon by D value, here you are going to have the value. And we have different pipes are there. You can see that epsilon value given here. Yeah, in this table it is incorporated. So we have different material. What is the epsilon value? You take K by D value. So from this Reynolds number and corresponding K by D value, you are going to K by D value having a line. K by D value is given, right? 0.05, 0.04. So for example, I have a pipe where the Reynolds number is 10 power 7, and I have a value of epsilon by D value. I am getting it to be 0.005. How I will be getting the friction factor chart is, it is a friction factor in the y-axis. So we are referring to this formula here for laminar flow 64 by NRE. So I can understand that this is Darcy friction factor. There are other Modi charts where you will get 16 by NRE as the slope of the laminar flow. So thereby I understand that friction factor mentioned there is Fanning's friction factor. Okay, so here it is Darcy's friction factor. So I have F equal to 64 by NRE. So that is an indicator for me. So now, as I told, I have a condition of Reynolds number equal to 10 power 7, epsilon D value of 0.05. It is like this blue line. For each blue line, slow value of epsilon D is given. So this is the line. This is 10 power 4. So I have here, and this is my 10 power 7. So this line, okay, what is the corresponding value in the y-axis? Gives me the friction factor, which is 0.03. I repeat how I am getting the value. I have calculated Reynolds number by using rho, V, D and mu values. I get Reynolds number equal to 10 power 7, and my particular material having epsilon by D value of 0.005. So from x-axis, I draw a vertical line up to, just like that I can draw a line, and I have noted down the epsilon D value 0.05. Here draw a horizontal line where it intersects. Draw a line parallel to x-axis, and where it intersects the y-axis gives me the value in the y-axis as friction factor value. So that friction factor value you will be making use in the Darcy equation, which we have seen here. Okay, what is the Darcy equation? We have F L by D V square by 2G. Why I am not writing F4F here? Because I have inferred that it is a Darcy friction factor, so which is F. If it is 16 by NRE chart and I got a F value, then I will be using 4FL by dy V square by 2G value to determine the delta HF. Then delta P is equal to rho G HF, right? So we can get the value, pressure drop across the thing. So how to measure that pressure drop? We can easily measure that pressure drop by connecting, say if I want to say this is the length of the pipe, as I told you earlier, let me say it is a 1 meter pipe I am having, which is the length of the pipe. Okay, so I will introduce an opening here, pressure tapping we can have, then connect a piezometer or any connecting rods and take it to the manometer, all this thing. Or if it is piezometer, you can see here piezometer reading. If in the upstream side it is going to be, fluid will rise high because rho G H. H will be more because the pressure is going to be more at P1. Always P1 is going to be greater than P2 because there will be loss due to friction across this, right? So here pressure at the point 2 is P2. So it is going to be equal to rho g H2. We can always note that H2 is lesser than the H1. H2 is less than H1. That's why because we are going to have pressure 1 is greater than pressure 2. Okay. That is pressure at the location 1 is always higher than pressure at location 2 because there is friction loss, head loss due to friction. That's what we're going to do in this experiment, right? So easily we can measure the delta P by connecting the two any pressure measuring devices at the two locations. Okay, in laboratory we are using this manometer or piezometer, but in industry there will be pressure gauges. Okay, so that's how we will be able to perform the equation and substitute in the Darcy-Weisbach equation to get the head loss due to friction. Okay, so in this experiment, what we can do is we are having connection now, we are getting delta P directly, or you can say H2 minus H1 we are getting directly. So pressure head loss is we have. Okay, so and by measuring the pipe in the fluid is flowing across the pipe, so we have a collection tank. We can measure the delta H we have delta H taking place in a certain time t. We know the dimensions of the tank, so you can always get the actual volumetric flow rate. If you know Q dividing by A, we are going to get V, right? So in this experiment, we will be determining the friction factor from the experimental data also. Delta P is there, volumetric flow rate and velocity is there. You will be determining the friction factor, which will be explained in detail by Dr. Mridusmitha. Okay, so this chart is called as Moody chart. It is a method of finding the accurate friction factor value, which can be used to in the Darcy-Weisbach equation. Okay, so mostly hydraulic engineers, civil engineers, and chemical engineers make use of this Moody chart, where we are directly determining the values. Okay, as I told you, these are some of the examples for empirical equation to determine the friction factor. As I told you, any empirical equation which was done, experiment was done under controlled conditions. For example, they had performed the experiment in the range of 5000 to 10 power 8, and the diameter value means roughness parameter by diameter of the pipe ratio of 10 power minus 6 to 10 power minus 12 minus 2. They have performed this experiment and derived this empirical equation. So if you want to make use of this equation, your data or your value should be falling in this range. Always, whenever you use any empirical equation for any course, not only in fluid mechanics, in heat transfer, mass transfer, we are going to come across several empirical equations. All will have a range, controlled range, that we have to make use. So for example, even this pressure drop, we have two equations. As I told you, we have Hagen-Poiseuille equation to determine the pressure drop across the unit length. Also, we have Darcy equation to determine the pressure drop across the unit length. But we have a limitation for Hagen-Poiseuille equation, which is applicable only for laminar flow. Okay, so that way we have to be always clear about where the empirical equation is applicable. Okay, we have a circular pipe. We have determined all the values for this friction factor easily. What, sir? Are we always using a circular pipe in all the places? The answer is no. Yes. Some of you can look at this diagram. You can see the most of the AC ducts where air is being blown from outer atmosphere into your room, right? So any AC rooms ducts, no, they are not kept in circular shape. You can see that the rectangular shape or square shape are there. So how to take into account of that? How we use the diameter? Because in Darcy equation we have 4f L by D V square by 2g. That for the diameter, how to replace the diameter for non-circular conduits. Okay, so there we are going to introduce a term called as hydraulic radius or hydraulic mean radius. So which is an alternative to which non-circular pipeline may be likened, and we can make use of that equivalent diameter in the Darcy equation. Okay, so how it is defined, this hydraulic diameter? It is 4 times the area, cross-section area, divided by the perimeter. So whatever may be the shape, we are going to, the cross-section area. For rectangular, it is length into breadth. What is the vetted perimeter? 2 times length plus 2 times breadth. So it is 2 into L plus B, right? So like that, for rectangular, we can easily get what is the hydraulic diameter. So that diameter can be used in the Darcy equation. Okay, for example, we have different crosses. It can be in different non-circular in the sense we can have different shapes, right? So as I told you, here we have different shapes, and what is the area, what is the vetted perimeter, and what is hydraulic radius. Okay, so that can be always referred to textbook for a non-circular case. So some of the example given here are for circular tube, what is the formula? DH is going to be D. If it is a square duct, you will get A. If it is rectangular duct, it is going to be 2AB by A plus B. Like that, you will get the hydraulic diameter also. Okay, so there are different shapes. Any shape you can have, we have equation to get the equivalent diameter. Okay, or hydraulic diameter. So general equation given here is for non-circular pipes, friction factor equal to 64 by NRE, and we K by value if 48 to 96, we can make use of these equations. Okay, so some of the K value for square, rectangular, parallel plates are given here. So which can be expanded here. You can see that a circular means it is 64 by NRE, right? If it is rectangular and the alpha by A by B ratio, the ratio is different. You can see the value, constant value varying from 56 to 96 by NRE. For ellipse, it varies from 64 by NRE to 78.16 NRE, where A by D ratio varies from 1 to 16. Okay, like that even for isosceles triangles, we have different ratio to get the friction factor. So once we have the friction factor, once we know what is the hydraulic mean radius or hydraulic diameter, we can make use of the Darcy equation. Okay, madam, over to you.
Today we are going to learn about the experiment determination of major losses in pipeline. The objective of this experiment is to determine the losses due to friction in pipelines and thereby determine the friction factor using the respective equations. Dear students, now I am going to explain the parts of this experiment. So this experiment consists of a centrifugal pump and a sump tank. The water flow into the pipeline is regulated using this centrifugal pump. The water flows into the two pipelines. One is of larger diameter and one is of smaller diameter. As you can see here, there are pressure tapings provided at two positions in each of the pipelines. The pressure head is calculated by connecting this pipeline into this pressure taping. We need to calculate the manometer readings and note down this reading. One end of the pressure taping is connected here and the other end is connected to the manometer. So the rise in the level of water in the manometer is calculated while doing the experiment. As I have already explained, the experiment consists of pipelines of two diameters, one of larger diameter and one of smaller diameter. So there are pressure tappings connected on two ends of the pipeline. So one end of the connecting rod in the pipeline is connected to the pressure taping and the other end of this connecting rod is connected to the manometer. So by regulating the flow rate using the control valve, we need to measure the rise in the water by using this scale. Now we are going to start with the procedure for the experiment.
Hello everyone. Now I will be explaining the procedure of the experiment. First, we make sure that the master bypass valve is closed. And then we connect the pressure tapings to the larger diameter valve pipe, which is the first test case. Then we keep the valve of the upper pipe in fully open position and the lower pipe in closed position. After that, we turn on the motor and we take the readings on the manometer to get the pressure difference across the section of our pipe. After that, using a measuring tank, we measure the actual discharge by calculating the time taken for 5 cm of rise. calculate the time taken for 5 centimeter rise, and then we stop to check the time. Now we will be taking another reading for a different value of volumetric flow rate. So we will slightly close the valve, and we will repeat the procedure by again checking the manometer reading, and then again measuring the actual discharge rate. We will again turn the water into the measuring tank and measure the time taken for 5 centimeter rise. This way we will be taking readings for 5 different positions of the valve. And then we end the procedure. Similarly, we will be doing the same procedure for different set of readings by moving the valve position to 5 different positions. Now we will be performing the experiment, and we will be noting down the reading. First, we have kept the valve in fully open position. Now we will be performing the procedure and we will be noting down the readings. First, we keep the upper valve in the fully open position and the lower valve in closed position. And now we will turn on the pump. We will wait for the manometer reading to settle before noting down the value. Now as you can see, the manometer reading stabilized and the value of H1 is 70.5 centimeters and H2 is 45.5 centimeters. Now we will be calculating the actual discharge by measuring the time taken for 5 centimeter rise in the measuring tank. Now as we can see, the lower limit is 11, initial height is 11 centimeters. Now we can see that the height has reached 16 centimeters and the time taken is 8.94 seconds. Similarly, just to repeat, first we have turned on the pump and then we kept the valve in fully open position and the second pipe in closed position. Then we have taken the manometer reading and we measured the actual discharge by measuring the time taken for 5 centimeter rise. And for the second set of readings, we will be taking a different flow rate by closing the valve a bit. As you can see, the manometer reading has changed now. Now the second set of manometer readings are as follows. H1 is equal to 70.5 centimeters, 70.8 centimeters, H2 is 47.5 centimeters, and we'll be measuring the discharge rate again. Now we are changing the flow rate for our second test case. I have changed the flow rate and will be taking the manometer reading of the pressure tappings in here and here. So H1 is 73.5 H1 is 73.5 and H2 is 50.5.
Note down the value 73.5, 50.5. 73.5, 50.5.
And now we'll be measuring the actual discharge. The initial level is 22 centimeters.
27.
No, let Nitin do it. He'll calibrate both at the same time. Now we will be taking another volumetric flow rate. So we'll change the wall pressure, the wall position again, and again we'll be taking the readings of the pressure tapping. The H1 value is 78.5 centimeters and H2 is 55.5 centimeters. And we'll measure the actual discharge again. Initial level is at 21.22 centimeters. Initial reading is 23 centimeters. The time taken is 7.25 seconds. So once again, the initial height is 16 centimeters. 16.5. Once we are completed with the larger diameter, we will turn off the pump and we'll remove the pressure connection from the pressure tapping of the larger pipe, and we'll connect it to the smaller pipe. And now we will ensure that the upper pipe is in closed position and the lower wall is in open position, and then we'll turn on the pump again. Now in the fully open position, the H1 reading is 97 and H2 reading is 24.5. Now again we'll measure the actual discharge. Once again we'll measure the actual discharge rate by calculating the time taken for 5 centimeter rise. The initial level is 16.5 centimeters. The time taken is 6.55 seconds. 59 seconds. Now for the second reading, we are changing the wall position. And now the value of H1 is 100 centimeters and H2 is 26.5 centimeters. And again, we'll be taking the reading of the discharge rate. Initial level is at 21.5 centimeters. Now the time taken is 6.75 seconds. Now I am changing it to the wall to a different position to get the third reading. Now H1 value is 98 centimeters and H2 value is 27.5 centimeters. To measure the discharge rate, initial height is at 19.5 centimeters. And the time taken is 7.53 seconds. 7.53 seconds. So this concludes our experiment and we'll be turning off the pump.
So dear students, now we are going to start with the observation part of the experiment. So for the observation and the calculation part, we need to first see the observation table here, okay? So here, these are some of the values which we will be needing to calculate the Reynolds number as well as the friction factor. So we have the acceleration due to gravity G, which is 9.81, and then the area of the measuring tank is taken to be 0.077 meter square. So as you know, there were two pipes of different diameters which are considered. So pipe of larger diameter length and pipe of smaller diameter. So the inside diameter of these pipes is taken to be 0.022 meter and 0.016 meter. The distance between the pressure tapings is denoted by capital L, which is 1 meter for each of the pipe diameters. So thereafter we go to the observation table. So here we need to plot the observation table for both the pipes of different diameters. So we need the H1, H2, R1, R2 and time values. So here H1, H2 are the manometer readings. So here H1 is the manometer reading, initial manometer reading, and H2 is the final manometer reading. R1 and R2 are the initial and the final level of water in the measuring tank, and T is the time taken to reach that level in the measuring tank. So we need to use this data to finally calculate the Reynolds number as well as the friction factor. So let us see what formulas we're going to use to finally calculate those values. Okay, so here on the left hand side, as you can see here, we need to calculate R for R, which is the rise of the water level in the measuring tank. So that will be in meter. So that will be R1 minus R2 by 100. Remember, we are using this 100 term because it's the reported values will be in centimeter. So we need to report these values ultimately in SI unit. So, and then Q is the volumetric flow rate, which is equals to the area into R divided by time. Then the area, the cross section area of the pipe, which is equals to pi into d square by 4. The velocity is given by the volumetric flow rate divided by the cross-sectional area of the pipe. Its F is equals to H1 minus H2 by 100. And the friction factor, so that is equals to HF into 2 into the acceleration due to gravity into the inside diameter of the pipe divided by 4 into the length into v square, which is v is the velocity here. So, and Reynolds number, as we know, is denoted by dv rho by mu, where mu is the viscosity and rho is the density. So these are the nomenclatures which we'll be using. Make sure that you use the correct units for correct calculation, and these are the types. So some of these values are already given, some needs to be calculated and some needs to be measured. So after using these formulas, we then go to the calculation table. So as I said, we were considering two pipes, so pipe 1 and pipe 2. So for pipe 1 and pipe 2, both of them, we need to find out this flow rate, the velocity, the Reynolds number, the head loss, and the friction factor. So by using the formulas, we find out these values, and then we need to find out the log of the friction factor and log of Reynolds number. Finally, after finding out this log of friction factor and log of Reynolds number, we need to plot them in a graph. Okay, so this graph will be the plot of the Reynolds number versus the log of the friction factor for both the pipes. So finally, after drawing the graph, we need to give our result and inference. So the losses due to friction in the pipes will be determined here in the results and discussion part, and the friction factor, which is calculated using the Darcy-Weisbach equation, will be reported, and the Moody chart needs to be plotted. So these are the things that you need to do in the result and the inference part. So and these are the readings for practice. You need to consider these readings to finally do the calculation. So this is what we have for the observation and the calculation part. Thank you so much.
I'll summarize what we have done in this experiment. So we have two diameter pipes with control valves. So we have two pipes of different diameters. One is larger diameter and smaller diameter. And we have a collection tank to calculate the actual discharge. So the collection tank is attached with a scale where we can note down the time taken for 5 centimeter rise. So we have a pump setup and we have a bypass valve there. Okay, so whenever we want to bypass the flow of the liquid into the collection tank, we can open and close that bypass valve. So if you look at the outlet of the pump, so from the outlet of the pump, we have inlet section for the pipe, two pipes, which one is larger diameter and another one is smaller diameter, and we have a main switch to switch on and off the system motor. So there are two pressure tappings provided here. So we have pressure tappings given for the larger diameter and smaller diameter with a gap of 1 meter length. So we have another pressure tapping. So that means between this 1 meter distance, we are going to measure the pressure drop due to friction. So then we are having a control valve. So we have to ensure that when we are operating one pipe, we have to close the other pipe. Okay, because when we do the actual discharge, we should have flow through only one pipe. Okay, actually we are taking this manometer. From this we connect this connecting pipe to measure the pressure. So we will take them and we'll connect into the two pressure tappings at 1 meter apart. Okay, so we will take this now. So we are taking it out and we will be measuring them, connecting it to the pressure tapping so that we will be able to measure the pressure drop across 1 meter length. Okay, so how to insert it we have seen. So you have to press it and we will connect it there. So we can connect these two connecting rods to the pressure tappings and we can easily measure the pressure drop across this 1 meter length for each volumetric flow rate that we are fixing. So we will switch on, once we keep the position of valve, we will switch on the pump. So once there is volumetric flow rate and steady state is attained, we will measure the manometer readings in the left limb as well as the right limb. So for example, you can see that here we are having level at certain level thing. So that centimeters we will noting down in the observation table, and then we will measure the time taken for 5 centimeter rise in the collection tank. So once you know the dimensions of this collection tank, cross section area into height divided by time taken, we will easily measure the actual discharge that has taken place for the each position of the valve. And similarly, we will change the valve position to different positions, and we will do at least 3 to 5 readings. Okay, so once we do the 5 to 6 readings, we will switch off the pump. Okay, the same procedure is repeated for the next pipe also. Thank you so much for joining our classroom. We will meet you in next video with another experiment. Bye bye. Dear students, please wear mask for your own safety.